So hello everyone. Thank you so much for being here with us today. This is an important day for the Renault Group. If you have been following us recently, you probably know that a lot is going on within Renault, within the company. So in the last 2 years, we worked hard to turn the group around, as you know, and we also started to prepare the future at the same time. We are positioning the group as a front runner in I would say in the major revolutions disrupting the automotive industry that are, as you probably know, the energy transition, the digital revolution, the shift from selling cars to selling kilometers, and finally the urge to reduce to zero the impact of our industry. These are all huge challenges. There are also great opportunities, and we think also, new profit pools. The automotive industry used to be one single sport. It's now more like the Olympic Games. So it's very exciting, but with a great variety of disciplines, each one of them requiring specific qualities. We believe that these new sports are actually complex. They require dedicated teams, 100% focused, and also with full autonomy. This is what it takes to play at the best level in this new environment. In our Capital Market Day next month, we will show how we implement this philosophy to kind of metamorphose the group, if I could say that. What we're going to tell you today will give you just a first insight on our approach when it comes to sustainability and especially circular economy. Facing the limits of the model that has been supporting our industry for decades is a challenge, I will say, for the whole automotive industry. Over the past few years, we have all become increasingly aware that this model of unlimited growth came with a cost. No one can put their head in the sand anymore. Consumers, citizens, public authorities, and our own employees are here to remind us every day. That's where it all started. Our industry consumes a lot of natural resources, sometimes much more so than any other industry. For example, we draw up to 85% of the global consumption of palladium and rhodium, and 40% for platinum and lithium. This gives us a particular responsibility while natural resources extraction raises more and more issues. Take the declining quantity and quality of ore. To produce copper, for example, you need to extract 3 times more earth today than 30 years ago. This in turn leads to a growing environmental impact. You need more water, more energy, and more land. Excessive pressure on resources also increases risks in terms of social responsibility. In addition, the complexity and the concentration of the supply chains is a matter of concerns. Lithium, with 75% of the reserves based in America and Australia, and with 60% of the refinement made in China, is a telling example of the kind of bugs we have into the system. On top of that comes sovereignty issues because of raw materials sourced in specific regions and nations and countries in the world. The energy transition makes the issue, I would say, even more acute, with the EV ramp-up increasing the pressure on mineral resources and some mineral resources. By 2030, the share of BEVs among new vehicles sold will have grown from 8% today to 55%. Over the same period, the share of EV-specific materials consumed by the automotive industry will actually skyrocket. It will be multiplied by 5 for cobalt, by 7 for lithium, and we'll need 8 times more nickel than today. In the middle of this context, there is a paradox. 85% of our vehicles, on average, are recyclable. This is huge, in fact. But in the inputs used for making new vehicles, you will find only a small proportion of the recycled materials, less than 30%. The remaining 70% will be virgin materials directly extracted from the soil. We think that this paradox is a big opportunity at Renault. Recyclable material remains a resource widely untapped in our industry. So, could it be that the existing park of vehicle becomes our biggest mine? Every year, 11 million vehicles reach their end of life. By recycling them, we could get enough steel to produce 8 million new cars and enough plastic and copper to produce 5 million new cars. So let's be clear. No one is in a better position than the Renault Group to embark on this road because we are already on the way. With more than 10 years of experience in circular economy, the Renault Group is recognized as a pioneer and as a leader today. We have already recycled over 14 million tons of steel from production scrap. This is the equivalent of what the whole car industry consumes in 1 year in Europe. In Europe too, we have recycled 12,000 tons of plastic and copper. For example, it's 1 year of the polypropylene we use to produce the Megane. And we have already collected 1 million tailpipes, recycling all the platinoids. Now, we want to accelerate in this direction. Circular economy is bound to assume a central position for the automotive industry. But it's a new discipline, actually, for OEMs, with specific rules of the game. That's why the Renault Group has decided to build the first 360 degrees circular economy enterprise in the automotive world. And today, I am very happy to announce the creation of The Future is Neutral. Neutral, because with it, the Renault Group aims for resources neutrality, and neutral, by the way, because it's the anagram of Renault. The Future is Neutral will act as an active holding. It will leverage existing assets of the Renault Group that are already generating both turnover and profits. 3 of its entities are ready to operate from day one. First is Gaia, which operates on material closed loops. The second is Indra, for the end-of-life vehicle dismantling. The third is Bunco Menor, for the metal scrap recycling. And for battery recycling, we will launch a dedicated entity. There is more. The Future is Neutral will be supported by one of the Renault Group's unique assets, the now famous Refactory in Flins. The Refactory is an ecosystem of activities dedicated to circular economy. It is a campus and an innovation hub, a used car refurbishment center, the Factory Veo. We will also launch a heavy bodywork factory and a dismantling line. All in all, the Refactory will act as an industrial base, a customer, as well as a service provider for The Future is Neutral. With all of this, we have the ambition to make The Future is Neutral an absolute reference for the circular economy business. One very important thing is that it is not only for the Renault Group, but for the entire industry. The Future is Neutral reflects our, I would say, comprehensive approach of the circular economy and makes it pretty unique. It's an open platform operating all along the value chain and addressing the needs of all the automotive players. To OEM and suppliers, The Future is Neutral offers a unique procurement platform to increase recycled content into vehicles. Our ambition is to become their entry point for both R&D and recycled materials offtake. To individuals and dealers willing to extend the life of their vehicles, it provides affordable and eco-friendly parts and services, as well as a responsible vehicle disposal. It will offtake all vehicles from all brands. And for everybody, individuals and companies as well, the Future is Neutral proposes certified training and consulting services. In other words, we have designed it to accompany the entire industry in the shift towards circular economy. Now, creating this new business, we accelerate on circular economy, and the Renault Group will double the number of businesses it had already in this field. The Future is Neutral will triple its turnover, reaching at least 2.3 billion euros in 2030. And it will reach a margin exceeding, we forecast, 10%, more than 10% in 2030. This is a new demonstration that the Renault Group is changing actually in depth, getting ready to harness the new automotive value chain. Thanks to the Future is Neutral, we reach unmatched coverage of the circular economy value chain. Thanks to previous Renaulution initiatives like the Refactory and Mobilize, we already cover, we know, 50% of this value chain. Now we take a new speed, aiming for 90% in 2030. It starts today, actually. So in a few seconds, my friend and colleague Jean-Philippe Bahuaud, who will be the responsible for this project, CEO of the Future is Neutral, will take the floor. So, Jean-Philippe, that's the time and the stage is yours for this project. But before he comes on the stage, let's look at a short video.
Climate change is a major challenge, causing a huge shift in the automotive industry, as it faces new challenges, particularly access to resources that are becoming scarcer and more expensive. And yet, the resources are there, within our grasp, in wrapped cars and offcuts from factories and mechanic shops. Cars themselves that are 85% recyclable, but only 20 to 30% of recycled material is currently reinjected back into the automotive industry. It is time we bucked the trend and innovate so that all that is old can once again be new. That is the idea behind the Future is Neutral. The Future is Neutral creates value out of the vast repository of resources by developing closed-loop recycling solutions. In other words, from car to car. The Future is Neutral is the first ever company to bring together all the industrial and technological activities needed to bring car recycling into a new era. From cutting-edge engineering to data mining, it comes up with technical solutions, while also providing consulting services and training dedicated to the circular economy. The Future is Neutral targets all players in the automotive value chain. Together with its subsidiaries and partners, the Future is Neutral collects parts, materials, and lithium batteries throughout the vehicle's life cycle. Once sorted, refurbished, or processed, these resources are either sold or re-injected back into the production of a new car. Its goal is to help car manufacturers incorporate more recycled materials in their processes. The ambition of the Future is Neutral is to lead the automotive industry into a more responsible and sustainable era, in line with modern expectations.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm delighted to share with you the birth of this new entity, this new brand. Actually, launching a brand goes far beyond communication attributes. It's about being focused on our positioning, clear about what we do and what we won't do, It is our first pillar of success, focus. We have 3 other pillars, starting with leadership. Because the task is huge and the activity is very diverse, succeeding in circular economy requires a very wide set of capabilities, often adjacent and complementary to the ones OEMs have developed. That's why we only work with the best enterprises, the best partners. Our 3rd pillar is technology. We believe we're in a unique position to leverage automotive, waste management, and digital, unleashing untapped value potential. But finally, nothing would be possible without accountability. And all of our existing companies now operate with empowered men and women driving clarified, ambitious midterm plans and their P&L accordingly. So let me now introduce you to our portfolio of champions. Our enterprises are all recognized leaders in their domain, all profitable already today. Let's take Gaia. Gaia embodies the concept from car to car. It is the only car manufacturer's affiliate in the automotive industry to operate material closed loops. There are no other, simply. Gaia collects exhaust pipes, 1 million units to date, copper, plastics, among other materials, recycles them, and then places them back in the automotive supply chain. A true Swiss Army knife. Gaia has also repaired more than 10,000 batteries to date from electric vehicles and has a 9,000 units annual capacity installed in Flins, able to diagnose and sort second life applications from recycling. Then Bunkemenor, a co-enterprise, Suez, and the future is neutral. Champion of metal scrap recycling. All automotive factories, in fact, produce steel-made parts. Well, Bunkemenor collects the related scrap from production, which is highly pure, by the way, and does what it takes to put it back into production for new vehicles. In 2021, Bunkemenor recycled more than 1.8 million tons of steel. Indra now. Indra is the only company in the world providing 360-degree solutions in the field of vehicle dismantling. Indra manages the largest network of dismantlers in France, with 380 sites, capable of dismantling up to 640,000 vehicles, representing 40% of the French market. Indra also provides state-of-the-art engineering solutions to support dismantlers and has become a trusted advisor to governments on the establishment of responsible vehicle dismantling networks. Battery recycling. This business will be launched in the coming years. We're working very hard on establishing closed loop for cobalt, nickel, and lithium, from shredding to refining, in order to recover materials with the highest grade and for the Renault Group, but also for other OEMs. Finally, the future is neutral has privileged connections with the refactory, where a unique transformation is taking place, hosting some of our activities like Gaia. But beyond business and environmental targets, we believe we have a responsibility. The future is neutral is committed to democratizing circular economy practices. Campus is a university in Flins exclusively dedicated to circular economy, with dedicated content and where trainees, enterprises, academics can experiment real economy activities at large scale, not only on slides, but also on the ground, in the refactory at Flins, operational today. It is on track for getting the label of excellence from the Ministries of Éducation nationale, Emploi, Enseignement et Recherche, and by 2025, more than 4,000 people from diverse horizons, from individuals to employees, will have been trained. Leveraging technology to maximize value creation. Well, automotive has been at the forefront of innovation for 200 years, still is. But with the future is neutral, we leverage this legacy and we top it off with waste and digital innovation capabilities. First, we support more metal extraction per vehicle. For example, there is today roughly 15 kilograms of copper in a vehicle at the end of its life. On average, dismantling sites recover less than 3 kilograms of copper. The most efficient dismantlers probably get 7, 8, 9 kilograms out of those vehicles. But by combining engineering efforts from Indra and from the Renault Group, we are committed to significantly raise this number and get prepared to maximize extraction for electric vehicles where there are 4 times more copper than in a combustion engine vehicle. Second, we help dismantlers extract more value per vehicle. We help focus on the parts that count. For example, aluminum, increasingly used in doors, in bonnets, due to its light weight. This high-quality aluminum ends up today in crankshafts in the engines, but could very well end up in new doors, in new bonnets, therefore closing the loop. More value means also reducing costs. And in that area, Indra's engineering also developed very specific processes to take an engine down 3 times faster than competition. Predicting value from dismantling. Imagine that cars are made of several thousands of parts on average. And now imagine that 11 million vehicles reach end of life on a yearly basis. That's billions of parts in Europe per year. Crossing this kind of data with market demand, thanks to appropriate algorithms, that's the future. And we can rely on the digital expertise of our shareholders to help us leverage the potential from large databases and artificial intelligence. Actually, we started working on this with Luc Julia, our recognized AI expert in Renault Group. Closing the loop on battery recycling, finally. Recycled cobalt, nickel, and lithium will be required in Renault Group batteries for supply reasons, but also to comply with regulation. The future is neutral, will take part in this highly innovative field requiring acute competencies in chemistry processes in order to extract more metal at the highest purity grade. Speaking of batteries, 15 years ago, the Renault Group started selling electric vehicles in Europe while planting seeds in circular economy activities. Now is the harvest season, and we can secure material sourcing while growing our business footprint. First, we will bring end-of-life batteries to recycling sooner than any other company because we have the largest electric vehicle park fleet in Europe to date, with close to 1 million vehicles driving today on the roads. Renault also leases a significant number of these batteries, increasing the likelihood to see them back in a few years for recycling. To collect battery materials, Indra is also expanding its network of dismantlers, and Gaia is capable of performing deep diagnostics in order to sort out second life applications from recycling. Furthermore, we work with our battery manufacturing partners, starting with Verkor, to pool our end-of-life batteries with their production scraps. Indeed, producing black mass in large quantities is essential for competitiveness at the metal refining stages of the recycling process. Our goal is to saturate the recycling capacity by 2030, which is key for profitability. So, in a nutshell, together with our industrial partners, our ambition is to develop a future European leader in battery recycling closed loop, attractive to any OEM. Our growth plan until 2030 is ambitious, driven by clear and commonly shared targets. Just like we did for Renaulution, we have a well-designed path for our growth. By 2030, we will double the amount of recycled metals from production plants using all growth levers at our disposal, from geographic expansion to industry diversification. We will also accelerate on materials recovery from end-of-life vehicles and multiply the amount of plastics and copper recovered by 6, reaching 9,000 tons combined. For platinoids contained in the exhaust pipes, we plan on collecting up to 300,000 exhaust pipes per year, leading to 1,000 kilograms of recovered materials in the form of rhodium, palladium, and platinum. Our production and post-consumer metal recovery from electric vehicle batteries will reach 4,500 tons of cobalt, nickel, and lithium recycled. To deliver our growth, we will need to invest €500 million in the coming 8 years. These investments will support scaling the company by expanding into new geographies, diversifying into materials and metals, and developing into new value spaces like reused parts. To help finance our growth, we are opening the capital to external investors. Eventually, the future is neutral, will operate as an affiliate of the Renault Group, alongside the investors that will be chosen based on their willingness and ability to help us drive the circular economy reach its deserved place in the automotive industry. Very happy to say that today we're launching The Future is Neutral. Today we are launching the very truly first 360 degrees circular economy enterprise in the automotive world. Thank you very much for your attention. This is concluding the presentation, and I think we can now open the floor to Q&A. Luca. So, what I suggest for the Q&A session is that we probably are going to start with the questions from the room, from the audience. And if you will, please, for the people asking questions, if you could just stand up, introduce yourself, and then we will take the questions, potentially repeat it for our people online, and try to answer it the best way. Any questions from the audience? Sir? So you probably need a microphone.
Ángel Calvo from the Spanish press news agency EFE. Can you precise which are your plans in this activity for Sevilla?
Okay. So Sevilla has the project of opening a refactory, which is a sibling to what is being done currently in Flins, right? And so the activities that we're launching there are very well matching what is currently happening in Flins, starting with the reconditioning of the used cars that we have on the market there, right? Some activities related to batteries will also take place there, and we will leverage our knowledge from Gaia in Flins with the repair center and the second life applications for Seville. I think what matters is that with the refactory, we kind of set a path for the transformation of those type of industrial sites. And based on the market specificity geographically of where our industrial sites might be located, there might be opportunities, subset of opportunities or full opportunities, just like we have in Flins, for the new geographies.
As it happened with the refactory, no? We did it in Flins.
Comme ce qui s'est passé avec les refactories, on l'a ouvert à Flins et ensuite José Vicente nous a poussé d'ouvrir quelque chose de semblable à Séville. Donc nous commençons et je pense qu'il y a d'autres sites aussi qui pourront avoir la même chance.
Please.
Just wondering, would there be in your results a section that has numbers going forward related to the revenues, you know, when you report results, a specific brand, a fifth brand next to the other ones, just out of curiosity? And then would you use some reskilling for some of your employees? You know, maybe there's fewer ones that will be working on ICE technology, and maybe you have capacity to reform them and reskill them for this effort, which presumably will become quite massive in the years to go as there are more recycled EV cars?
You can answer.
Okay. Yeah. So maybe I'll start answering with the second question first about the reskilling, because this is actually key for the Renault Group and key for The Future is Neutral. We started doing this actually in Flins with the refactory to reskill some of our workforce in order to better face the upcoming challenges of not only circular economy but also electric vehicles. Working on the batteries, repairing them, trying to find second life applications for the batteries. So on that very specific task, we can rely on the campus dedicated to circular economy located in the refactory in Flins, and The Future is Neutral will help co-work with that entity in order to develop reskilling at a larger scale.
Not only for our employees. not only for our employees.
Et ce ne sera pas fait uniquement pour nos employés. Notre projet, c'est de pouvoir offrir ces formations également à tout l'écosystème autour de nous, pour les fournisseurs, parce que on doit en fait créer des compétences qui n'existent pas. Et en général, nous le faisons non seulement pour l'économie circulaire, mais également pour les batteries, pour la chaîne de valeur des VE, la cybersécurité, tout cela. Donc je pense que d'ici 2025, nous aurons en fait reformé à peu près 11 000 personnes ou 15 000 personnes chez Renault. Et ensuite, nous pourrons ouvrir cette plateforme à nos fournisseurs. Nous appelons cela la Renault University. Et donc, cela pourra centraliser l'infrastructure et toutes les compétences sous le même titre, et ensuite voir quelles sont les approches de montée en compétences que nous devons mettre en place. Et vous avez en fait, vous avez parlé de la transition des voitures thermiques vers les VE et l'impact que cela aura. Ça ne sera probablement pas le cas pour la France, parce que, comme vous le savez, Flin va
on those kind of technology into, let's say, into the EV, both on the engineering side, and with the decision to turn Cleon into electric powertrain production thing, that will be pretty natural. And outside, the activity on engine will actually potentially give us chances to increase the number of people and not reduce it. So I don't think we'll have this problem, on the specific problem. So you want to talk about transparency on numbers?
Yeah. Regarding the numbers, so as we were explaining, those activities in circular economy actually require to have a certain number of partners, and those entities that we have are sometimes fully owned by Renault, sometimes partially owned by Renault, and so on and so forth. So in the process of the opening of the capital, of course, all the details will be revealed, but for anything else, we would need to actually engage with our partners to allow the level of depth that can be shared on those activities.
In general, and you will see that probably in the Capital Market Day in a month, the let's say our mindset will be, and our approach will be more and more to give transparency on the performance of each one of the units, because we had tendencies to mix up everything, and so it was difficult for people like you or analysts or investors to look into the thing. So we have a plan to actually make it more clear, because there are really some activities, there are many activities that are very, very interesting, very like this one. I mean, when I came that's why I'm here, I'm trying to kind of, bless the presentation of Jean-Philippe, who is doing the job, because I remember we had the discussion upstairs, and we saw things that were in the system, not completely connected, and we say, why don't we put them together, and we try to make something that can cover the whole value chain. And then you see the numbers. But they were not very clear, even to us, no? Mm. Some of things we had to invest, some of things we had to maybe find a partnership, but now we have something that is on all the key points of the value chain. That's why we are putting that together and proposing it also to investors.
Hello, I've got a question from Reuters. I'm Gilles Guillaume. A question on the outside, possible outside investors to that activity. Can you give us a flavor of who that can be? Will Suez be part of it? And will Nissan and Mitsubishi, could they invest also in that activity, or it's not among the discussions underway? Thank you.
The answer is very simple. The question is difficult, but the answer is simple. There are two potential profiles of investors in the future is neutral: financial institutions and industrial players. We believe that those two profiles can actually bring us synergies, capabilities that we require in order to really push the businesses forward. This is our main goal, main achievement. Suez is a partner in some of our businesses in our portfolio already. Nissan has been also facing, together with Renault, some challenges launching, electric vehicles 15 years ago. So Nissan and Renault will face in Europe similar challenges when it comes to recycling, specifically electric vehicles. So we are very transparent, and we do not rule out any potential option on the investors list. Actually, the process for the investors is starting today. So we don't rule out any of the options that were mentioned.
It makes a lot of sense in Europe to team up with Nissan because of the quantity of the cars that they have, especially on electric cars. So this is one of the topics we're discussing these days, where we could create value together. But of course, we don't rule out. For sure, let's say the deal in that case would be avoiding by region duplicating infrastructure investment. No, it would make sense to do it together, or that someone, when you invest, and another one, uses the facilities, the processes, the resources that one of the partners is putting together. I'm not going to do the same thing in Japan. It doesn't make sense for me, right? I would use Nissan, for example. And in Europe, we are ahead of the game for sure. And not only, in general in the industry, because we started a long time ago, and we have been working already the last couple of years very, very hard before, coming up with this presentation.
Yes, please.
Hello, Delphine Rioux from BNP Paribas Asset Management. So my question will be related to the percentage of recycled material right now on average in a car from Renault. So what is the current percentage? And so are you been able to target a percentage by 2030? And have you been able to make the link with any potential in, I would say, improving operational and operating margin? Thanks a lot.
Okay, so regarding the position of the Renault Group in terms of percentage of recycling in the vehicles, we are front-running with a few models that are actually way beyond 20%. The target that was set for 2030 in the ESG strategy of the Renault Group is 33%. Now, that target is bound to move in the right direction, so to speak, because we have assets like the Future is Neutral that will help fuel OEMs like Renault Group, but also other OEMs to actually increase that number by having sourcing, by having competitive recycling processes, by having what it takes to actually have the recycled materials in our vehicles, right? Is it answering the question?
The more efficient is the process, the industrial process, the more sophisticated is the technology, the better we'll be able to control the cost. Because today, in fact, one of the barriers is that recycled material are more expensive than the materials that come from the first production thing. And so we have to actually break that kind of, the kind of barrier, and then the thing will go up. Facilities to produce them are there, processes are there, and the cost will be under control. So if we want to ramp up in terms of percentage, we need to keep the cost down, and that will be one of the challenges. No?
And to complement the answer, I think one should be very wise, on those percentages which are announced today, because it's actually extremely difficult, if not impossible, to have a steady percentage across the entire lineup of an OEM. So sometimes it's easier to and explain and understand, model by model, which is the level of recycled material that you have in certain vehicles, because of the supply chain of those vehicles are different. They're going to end up with very different recycled rates.
We already made a couple of strong statements, I believe, on this thing, because as Jean-Philippe was saying, Renault, for a long time, has been putting emphasis on the issue of recycling. That's why we are in percentage ahead of most of the competitors. I don't know if you've seen, there is a small car that was recently presented from Mobilize brand, like a second generation Twizy, it's called the Duo. So we're pretending this car will be 50% recycled material. So we engineered the car in order to enable us to put on that car 50%, because we want to see, where the technical boundaries are, or the possibilities are. And in the event change now There was spring this year. We presented another car called Scenic Vision, and we were assuming that this car, we built that car with 70% recycled material, 70. So, there is a lot of, passion for the topic in the house. And then to translate the 70% recycled into series production with the quantity, it's complicated, but, it shows that it's possible, right?
Any other question from the audience? Yes?
There are no questions coming from
I think
outside or...
Excuse my English. Justine Vasson, BFM Business. Which place will have the future is natural in the new organization of Renault? Will it be integrated in Ampere? And how are you working on Ampere? How are the negotiations right now?
Of what? The negotiation of what?
What?
Which negotiation?
With Nissan, for example.
Okay, so I can answer to this question. I mean, as Jean-Philippe said, Future is Neutral is supposed to be an independent company that, of course, is connected to the rest. Okay, so what we will try to do is a kind of an ecosystem that is connected and the companies supporting each other. So, of course, the units like Mobilize, units like Refactory, etc., are very much, somehow, forced to cooperate. Okay, so and also they can be a captive customer of each other. Okay, so this is the logic. For the negotiation, I don't think this is the time and the place to discuss about those topics, because we are here to talk about circular economy. Maybe we can do a small aparté later, and I can comment on a few things. But I invite everybody to focus on the topic of the day, please. Thank you.
Yes. And then I think we'll take, after that, the question from the connected people.
I just wanted to come to just the government view, European governments, not only the French one. Bruno Le Maire recently actually said that, car makers should focus more on car recycling. So just wondering if, Luca, you also mentioned sovereignty. It's becoming a bigger and bigger topic or area, sovereignty, given the geopolitical situations we're seeing. So just wondering if you are seeing also a realization among wider governments that there needs to be a lot more focus on these areas, and whether there are discussions with governments. Also, are they interested in the French one, in what you are proposing here today, and whether you think, another competitor of yours announced some plans earlier this week. Do you think the industry is finally getting more aware, apart from Renault, and just where you see this heading?
I think the discussion, the discussion. We know that as you know, like reading papers and listening to conversation, that this discussion is getting more and more relevant. I think the risk is that we actually, let's say, don't want to admit that some materials, they are actually in very specific places. So that's God that created the world and put 80% of the cobalt in Congo. Okay, so there's nothing you can do there, right? But of course there are other issues where. Look at what we have done into the whole process of getting back a little bit control of the EV value chain. Because of that, because of the pressure we had to source the materials medium and long term, we had to scout for possibilities on how to source maybe lithium or nickel, etc. And finally, we ended up in Germany or in Finland, because in those two specific cases, the whole, let's say, process of extracting the material, refining the material, was very sustainable. And we said, okay, if we go for it, then we have to go right for the first time. And then we found that in an environment, which is a European environment. So, of course, you can do. I think that it's, I believe, a relevant, let's say, an important variable when you make decision now, for sure. But you can't do it all the time, right? you can do it all the time. Because some materials are, I mean, rhodium is, I think it's in two places. There is a place in the south of Africa, you know, the old Rhodesia, I think, and there is a mine in Canada. And the whole production of this material that is used for catalytic, let's say, exhaust system, the whole production fits in one truck. The whole annual production fits in one truck. So you pay the gram, you know, a fortune. And these are only two places on the planet, right? So this is the reality of the thing. One thing which is sure, and that also motivates us to accelerate in this direction, maybe also our competitors, is regulation are coming very, very soon. On battery recycling, on short loops of materials and plastics, and what else? And then you have
end-of-life vehicles.
And end-of-life vehicles. So there is something that's coming very quick. So you have to turn that into an opportunity rather than a threat. If we are organized, a lot of people will come to us to buy our processes, our expertise, maybe to use our infrastructure, et cetera, et cetera. So that's what we see, and we try to anticipate. And we see that since a couple of years very, very clearly. That's why we've been working very hard. You know, what I want I mean, we would not come here today to propose potentially to start a process of kind of selling the company to investors if we would not be completely convinced that we have substance in what we're doing. So here it's not a PowerPoint thing. So you can, you know, lift the PowerPoint, and behind that you have, you know, plans, you have companies, you have people. This is a very, very serious and concrete project. Of course, there is potential to grow, to get better, etc. But there are assets. It's not just an intention. Just to make it clear. And we need money to accelerate, right? So.
Okay. Question from Pablo Lady, Comunica RSE. For the future is neutral, do you plan to develop a sustainable financing strategy using green bonds? Well, I think the answer to that is
maybe.
Yes. Yeah. Very short, maybe. Right now, our focus is to make sure that the businesses that we have in the portfolio, together with our partners, are growing at the pace that they deserve. Now, the financing of that is going to be related to the proof of how the money is actually used in a smart manner to make the businesses grow faster, better, stronger. And so every option is on the table. We're starting with private investments, with the two profile of companies that we just mentioned in the answer to the gentleman on the left. But maybe using green bonds will one day complement the financing scheme that we have designed today.
One thing that is sure is that when you one of the benefits of separating, putting in front of potential investors, something that is very specific and clear to read on a value chain, you kind of attract people that would not necessarily invest in the overall thing, but are interested specifically on that kind of technology, that kind of industry. So we will for sure attract people that maybe we don't have into, you know, the shareholder structure of the top company.
Question from the audience or question from the web? So question from Tribuna de Automoción. Sorry for the spelling potentially.
Tribuna de Automoción.
Okay. Could you please update us on where you are regarding the EV batteries second life business? I'll take this one.
Yeah.
We're doing well. We're doing well. Actually, in Flins, if we were able to virtually take you to the refactory today, what you would find are very tangible assets coming from the second life of batteries. Gaia, one of the companies of our portfolio, actually currently is operating second life applications for a company called Batteries, which is a partner of Mobilize. So now, follow me, you know, Gaia, part of the Future is Neutral, operating batteries for Mobilize, Renault Group, that has a company in which they invested called Batteries, which is a company creating battery generators for second life applications. You would also find 15 megawatt hours of second life battery potential applications in the form of energy storage systems that are big racks of batteries connected to the grid, able to fuel in electricity when time is needed, depending on the supply-demand locally. So, all in all, the EV batteries second life application is progressing well. Now, everything is a matter of scale. And as the batteries will come back, we will have more and more applications in those areas. But the good news is that the batteries from the Renault Group are good enough to kind of stay in the vehicles a bit longer than forecasted. So we're actually opening up those activities, to potentially other OEMs as well in our growth plan for the future is neutral in order to get that scale. What are the geographical ambitions of the new business unit? Very clear. Becoming the first and only European leader of circular economy. So the focus is going to be Europe. That being said, we already have in our portfolio of companies Bunkemenor, which is a global player acting way beyond the boundaries of Europe. And we have some other companies inside our portfolio, such as Indra, advising governments in other regions of the world. So even if the focus will be Europe, we will have activities in the rest of the world. Just to mention Bunkemenor. Bunkemenor has a client base which goes way beyond Renault Group, right? All the factories that are producing steel, that are assembling vehicles, and that have scrap of production, steel scrap production, could be a client of Bunkemenor. So Bunkemenor is active way beyond Europe, way beyond Renault Group, and our focus for the rest of the portfolio will be mainly Europe. We have to realize that, as you were mentioning a few minutes ago, the challenge of recycling is a worldwide challenge, but specifically in Europe, we have a combination of factors, the sovereignty of materials, the regulation systems that put us in the right place in order to provide solutions, probably in Europe more than in other regions of the world. So we just want to start and make it very well, very neat in Europe before expanding wider. Question de l'AFP. Comment se découpe
A question from AFP. How do you cut up this turnover between the different activities? Why don't you integrate your activity of refurbished vehicles? Second question, how many employees are going to be concerned by the subsidiary? And thirdly, is the future is neutral only for Renault Environment, or are you going to add on other things? Okay, you can answer that question. Go ahead. Okay, so how can you distribute this turnover? I think we did have a slide that was dedicated to the total of the turnovers. And so I'm not going to go back to that slide, but my answer is actually in the presentation itself. So why not integrate? Could you leave the questions on the screen, please? So why not integrate your refurbishing activity for vehicles? The answer is very simple. In the 2.3 billion that we talked about today, we haven't put the activity of refurbishing of used cars that we do in the refactory in Flins for a single reason. It's because the refactory is a project of the Renault Group, and the Future is Neutral is an affiliate of the Renault Group. So it's two different things which will be working together, which will be feeding each other, which will be nourishing each other, but which will not be mixed up for very operational reasons, actually. How many employees are concerned? Well, all the employees, actually, who are in the portfolio of the companies that are covered by the Future is Neutral, plus the few employees It's going to be very few employees, really, who will be active inside the Future is Neutral, who will be employed by the Future is Neutral, so that we can create the best possible working conditions of all the companies in the portfolio for operating properly, to find the right synergies, and to get even more value than if the companies were to work separately. So this idea of an active holding company, so it's a holding company, but which will be very active in the businesses to help and support to create new openings, and that will be actually supporting the Future is Neutral. Now, will the Future is Neutral just replace Renault Environment, or will there be other add-ons? Well, Renault Environment was an activity that did start up, and it initiated work on the circular economy within the Renault Group. And these activities today are going to be taken over by the Future is Neutral. But other activities that are not linked to the business will remain within the Renault Group, because these are skills and know-how that are completely unique, and we need to protect them and continue to develop them. But in the longer term, you will have the Future is Neutral, which is an affiliate of the Renault Group, and skills of the Future is Neutral that will stay. Some skills will remain within the Renault Group and will not be carried over into the Future is Neutral. It seems to me like we are done, or are there any other questions? We might maybe take one last question from the web.
Contribute to the announced objective of achieving 1 billion in turnover from circular economy activities by 2030. The answer is yes. The answer is yes, of course. But I think it will go beyond, because the turnover that was presented today by 2030 will actually surpass that number. The Future is Neutral will help Renault Group contribute to circular economy turnover in general in the field of circular economy in 2030. But, and that's very important, not all the circular economy activities of the Renault Group are in the Future is Neutral. So if I'm fast forwarding in 2030 we will have the Future is Neutral generating a certain amount of turnover, more than 2.3 billion euros, and then the rest of the Renault Group also performing circular economy activities that will count as a whole for the target 2030 for the Renault Group. I hope this is clear, because it's a bit it's technical sometimes.
I mean, you have activities here and there you can put under the umbrella of under the definition of circular economy. But what we are trying to do here is just to really stick to the to the core value chain of some activities, where we think there is a need to structure processes, homogeneous processes, make the connections, so that needs to stay together. It needs to be managed together. So that's the Future is Neutral. Okay, so I think we're fine. I'm waiting for Catherine, who's the real boss here, and tell me what I have to do. Can we?
Okay.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you very much.
Right.